You know, as a consultant, I spend a lot of time in boardrooms. It's been my joy to observe board behavior, to advise board behavior, and now, in my latest book, to write about the boardroom. The intentional board addresses numerous aspects of the work of boards and board members. You know, as I wrote the book, a number of themes began to emerge, which eventually became a unifying theme that's found throughout the book. We've titled it The 17 Laws of the Intentional Board. Today I want to just give you a brief introduction to those laws, and in subsequent videos I'll unpack them one at a time. But I wanted to introduce the overall concept and just encourage you to think about how these laws can impact your life inside and outside the boardroom. Memorize them. Apply them at home, at work, in your community, and other areas of your passion. Share the 17 laws with other people you care about. And in the process, I would love to hear your feedback. If you find one or two ways that these laws impact what you're doing, please contact me. I'd love to hear from you either by email or by phone. And with that, let me introduce the next video, which is law number 1. Our focus is on law number 1. These are the 17 laws of the intentional board. Law number 1 is the law of the page. Now, healthy organizations want everyone to be on the same page. We need a common point of reference to rally around. And if we had only one page, it would be the case statement. Now, the case statement may consist of more than one page, maybe 2, maybe 3, but 1 is better. One page that clearly delineates the primary focus for the organization. You know, the board is responsible for formulating, adopting, and achieving whatever is put forth on the page. An intentional board will begin by adopting the page. Subsequently, the page can be added to bring additional clarity. How about your board? Do you have one page? Is there a page everyone rallies around? That's law number 1, the law of the page. You can't get on the page if there's not a page. Law number 2 is the law of the kingpin. Everything revolves around something, whether it's a machine, an organization, a group, a family, or a business, you name it. Something lies smack dab in the middle. Now, Merriam-Webster defines kingpin as, quote, the chief person in a group or undertaking, close quote. The law of the kingpin recognizes this fact and urges us to determine what is central to the work of the board. Carefully evaluate your organization to discover what's in the middle. As you do, remember that funders readily see what's central to an organization. Your centricity is not a mystery to them. Funders fund solutions, mission, purpose, not persons, not problems. Law number 2, the law of the kingpin. Everything revolves around something. Law number 3, the law of free labor. You know, sometimes we're tempted to believe we have to do everything, every task all on our own. Now, this usually flows out of the idea that we can't afford to hire competent help, or the myth that I'm the only one who can actually get the job done. Both are false notions. The law of free labor recognizes that people will work harder for free than they will for pay. Now, consider your own experience. Remember that hot afternoon when you and some friends scrubbed an unending string of automobiles at a youth car wash? At the end of the day, you declared, "I've had it. I'll never do this again. They couldn't pay me to work this hard." Well, that's exactly the point. We'll do all kinds of things for love as volunteers that we'd never do for money as employees. So, law number 3, the law of free labor. People will work harder for free than they will for pay. Let's take a look at law number 4, the law of the limits. You know, it seems as if we live in a world full of boundaries, and there's something about human nature that prompts us to want to play by the rules. And whether it's in the boardroom, the bylaws, or life in general, we achieve freedom once we know where the limits are. And then we can experience true freedom by operating within the framework. So the law of the limits alerts us to the concept of always and never. To become exceptional board members, ask for the answer to this question. What are the federal, state, municipal, bylaw, and policy limitations on what we can do, mission, and how we do it, tactics? Step 1, observe the law of the limits. Step 2, live happily ever after. How's that for simplicity? So law number 4, the law of the limits. Beware of always and never. So law number 5 is called the law of the first look. Now, boards become highly effective when they focus primarily on strategic issues. The greatest challenge to this priority is the distraction of the mundane and minutiae. So to guard against these challenges, observe the law of the first look by disciplining the board to vet every issue in committee before seeking final action. When the board does this, it ensures 2 things. Number 1, detailed, highly specialized discussion occurs in committee, allowing the proposals to be explored in depth there. And number 2, the recommendations that are presented to the board meetings will have already been refined, and it spares the full board from getting lost in the weeds, and thus preserves precious time on the board agenda for matters of strategic importance. Law number 5, the law of the first look. Committee work precedes board action. Now for law number 6, the law of impact. You know, it takes more than just being elected to a board to leave a legacy on behalf of the mission and the goals of a charitable organization. To bring true value to your board service, master the law of impact. Knowledge really is power. If you will just take a few minutes to educate yourself on the purpose, the history, the plans, the policies, and the accomplishments of an organization, you'll be positioned to be impactful within the boardroom and far beyond. Law 6, the law of impact. Knowledge equals power. Know your bylaws, history, policies, plans, and minutes. Law number 7 is the law of the laser. And you know, we've all been warned about the perils of being spread too thin, spending too little time on too many things, and as a result, accomplishing little of real significance. Well, the law of the laser urges us to focus intently on the few strategic priorities rather than constantly going back and forth in search of the newest shiny object. You know, when I was a kid growing up in Kansas, on a hot summer day, I could take a simple magnifying glass and patiently hold it steadily for a few minutes and actually light a small piece of paper on fire. Similarly, a few minutes of robust boardroom dialogue, if focused in the right area, can ignite action that will indeed change the world. Where will you aim your laser gun? Law number 7, the law of the laser. Sharp focus will ignite a raging fire. Law number 8, the law of expansion. What needs to grow or become larger in your life, your boardroom, your organization? Sadly, the most important things don't always get the most attention. It seems we all have a tendency to focus on the distractions and disappointments of the past, rather than the possibilities and opportunities of the future. I wish I could say that was not the case for me, but it really is. And so to counterbalance this impulse, take hold of the law of expansion. Intentionally focus on whatever you want to see more of, because it's not just a trite saying, it's the truth. Whatever we focus on really does expand. Law number 8, the law of expansion. Whatever we focus on expands. So let's take a look now at law number 9, the law of unending supply. You know, wouldn't it be great if the things we treasured most in life were unlimited? Instead, it seems like the things we never run out of are those we wish didn't exist at all, like Grandma's Christmas fruitcake. When will it ever end? Well, the law of unending supply tells us how to be sure we always have a deep pool to draw from when it comes to qualified candidates for board chair. If we set the bar high and recruit only those members to the board who can realistically one day serve as chair, we'll never run out of great nominees. And if we get it wrong half the time, we always have half a room to choose from. Law number 9, the law of unending supply. Only recruit board members in whom you see the potential to serve as chair. So now we come to law number 10, the law of the pipeline. Do you know that panicked feeling in the pit of your stomach when you have to make an important decision with little advance notice? I do, and I hate it. I think we all do. This scenario plays itself out in the boardroom all too often. The annual election for board members is just a few weeks away. 5 members are rolling off the board, and we have no idea who the replacements might be. What do? Well, we act on impulse and drag in whoever comes to mind without considering their specific qualifications. Instead, implement the law of the pipeline. Now, I'm going to use a new word. I just made it up. It's called pre-crute. So pre-crute the next 3 members of your board. Vet them even before a vacancy occurs. Make sure everyone is prepared to add them to the roster when the time is right. The more leaders you place into the pipeline intentionally, the more leaders will emerge from the other end. That's law number 10, the law of the pipeline. Put more leaders in, get more leaders out. So now let's jump into law number 11, the law of unnatural selection. You know, the natural, easy, common approach to life, much less recruiting volunteers, is just to plunge headlong down the path of least resistance. By contrast, the law of unnatural selection calls us to lift our sights, live intentionally, and take the path of most resistance. Compared to the lesser alternative, tackling difficult issues today will require more time today and more effort today. But in the long run, we reap the reward of immeasurable benefits in time, money, and stress. So by refusing to take the easy road, we keep standards high and position ourselves and the organizations we love for long-term sustainable success. Always recruit up. Law number 11, the law of unnatural selection. Take the path of most resistance. Recruit up. So now we'll take a look at law number 12, the law of origin. Everything begins somewhere. But isn't it interesting how often we experience false starts? So for example, in the boardroom, an idea is discussed at great length with great enthusiasm, but with no definite plan of action. A month later, someone asks, what came of that thing that we discussed at our last board meeting? Well, the answer is nothing. Nothing happened because the board didn't make a decision. The law of origin charts a clear path forward by stating that nothing happens unless first a motion. The very act of formulating a motion requires that we distill a proposal down to its simplest form. What specific action are we asking the board to take? If all in favor say aye, what specifically are they saying yes to? Law number 12, the law of origin. Nothing happens unless first a motion. So here we are at law number 13, the law of strategic neglect. You know, I've come to believe that for most of us, success in life is more likely to be determined by what we say no to than what we say yes to. The law of strategic neglect requires that we decide what not to do on purpose. What are some of the good but non-essential things you need to delete or diminish from your life so you'll have room for the great and highly important priorities? What about your board work? Are there some familiar tasks and traditions that need to be set aside to make room for pursuit of the unfamiliar but strategic endeavors? Law number 13, the law of strategic neglect. Purposefully determine what not to do. So let's go to law 14, the law of thinking otherwise. Now, in the British Parliament, there's a term that describes the role of the political party with the second largest number of seats. Now, the role of this party is to question and challenge the incumbent government. The term that's used is Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. Similarly, the law of thinking otherwise prompts boards to cultivate a culture of divergent thinking. This accomplishes three key things. Number one, it encourages the expression of other points of view. Secondly, it refines ideas beyond their initial form. And then third, it ensures that every voice in the room is heard and valued, regardless of which side of the issue that voice seeks to support. Law number 14 is the law of thinking otherwise. Cultivate a culture of divergent thinking. So as we continue exploring the 17 laws of the intentional board, we come to law number 15, the law of the prize. I get these kinds of calls often, maybe you do too. Are you busy? Somebody asks. How many times each day does the word busy pop up in conversation? If only there were a prize for being busy. Well, unfortunately, busy isn't the same as productive, profitable, impactful. Elevate the measure of success in your boardroom by observing the law of the prize. When we celebrate results, not activity, we're drawn toward the priorities that matter most. Whether inside the boardroom or elsewhere, do you measure activity or results? Law number 15, the law of the prize. Celebrate results, not activity. So let's take a look at law number 16, the law of the teetertotter. You know, life pulls us toward the extremes, but our happy place lies somewhere in the middle. Even the popular childhood fairy tale character Goldilocks wanted something different after tasting porridge that was too hot and then too cold before gobbling up a bowl that was just right. So the law of the teeter-totter calls us to achieve balance in the boardroom by avoiding the extremes of trying to do everything or nothing. In moments of inspiration and enthusiasm, we charge ahead in hopes of immediately implementing all the best practices of the intentional board. Then, when we can't get it all done in short order, we despair and leap to the other extreme of doing nothing new at all. Be gracious with yourself and with your board. Strive for something in the middle. Law number 16, the law of the teeter-totter. We must achieve balance in the boardroom. Here we are at law number 17, the law of the slight edge. Now this law tells us that a small adjustment can make a huge difference when consistently applied over an extended period of time or distance. For example, just a 1-degree adjustment in trajectory will make little difference if you're just walking across the street. But if you're on a journey of 1,000 miles, that same 1-degree deviation will lead to an entirely different destination. Carefully analyze areas of your board, your organization, and your life to determine where your 1-degree shift can be most impactful. Then simply stay the course for the long run. You'll enjoy unprecedented success. Law number 17, the law of the slight edge. A 1-degree adjustment will catapult unprecedented success. So we've just completed all 17 laws of the intentional board. I hope you found them interesting, motivating, inspiring, most importantly, applicable to your own circumstance. I know you'll find ways to apply these laws, these principles, in every aspect of your life, in the boardroom, in your workplace, in your personal life, and in the community where you live, work, and worship. The 17 laws come from my latest book, The Intentional Board. If you don't already have the book, check it out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear the results, the impact the Intentional Board has in your boardroom, the organization you love and serve. If there are ways I can help elevate your board to the level of best practices, please call or email. I would love to visit and explore how we might collaborate to make your board intentional rather than accidental, allowing you to govern on purpose. In the meantime, you have my best wishes for every success.